Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the CSL. I am Joe. I'm joined here today by Fear Dragon, and we're going to be casting Florida versus Georgia Tech. Should be a hell of a fun match tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We got some kind of more prominent community members going to be playing in today's match. We got people like Seeker, we have people like Theory, and we also just have a lot of players that have been in the CSL for multiple seasons, like Bexby, like Plumerant, like my favorite team Cube Squared. We got Jessup Cube and Box Cube playing in the 2v2 for good old Georgia Institute of Technology. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to today's match.
Yeah, and it's a bit of if we were in traditional old school sports, I think we'd be talking about some kind of Florida Georgia rivalry. They're two, they're states that are right next to each other. They both tend to be very good, and these guys, we'll have to see how they're going to do in this CSL. We're in the second week here of StarCraft 2, and I think our players are ready, so we should be hopping in any second now.
Yep. We're going to be hopping into our first match. Is going to be on Catalina for a 1v1 between Seeker and Plumerant. Seeker, a Terran player, and Plumerant, a Zerg player. And this is, we did confirm that this was the Team Liquid Seeker, the one infamous for doing all kinds of translations and stuff for Dank Shrine and talking with all of those glorious Korean StarCraft players, the pros, like Innovation and Sue and Zest and etc. So this is going to be a fun one. This should be really, really cool to see how it goes.
Yeah, he's a good player as well. You know, Plumerant, I think, is in Masters, but Seeker's been in Masters in the past. So I think we've got a pretty decent matchup to kick things off here. Both of these teams, I believe, still have their best players in reserve, and I am excited to see how it goes here on Catalina as we spawn into our first map.
Indeed. We're going to be starting down here, or over here on the left-hand side of the map. The purple Zerg player, give it up for Plumerant, representing Georgia Institute of Technology. AKA Team Long Live Harambe, I believe.
And in the bottom right-hand corner, playing for Florida, we have the blue Terran. Give it up for Seeker.
Nice. So it is worth noting that both of these teams, as you've already mentioned before, Joe, have played at least one of their matches for the CSL so far. Florida, unfortunately, going 0-2, and Georgia Tech, unfortunately, going 0-1 right now. Now, the early rounds, it's always really hard to get a good read on what that actually means, because early on, you could maybe just face off versus the team that eventually ends up being the #1 seed in the group or something like that. And that one loss, you start off 0-1 or you started off 0-2 because you face off versus the two best teams in the group. But it's still worth noting that, hey, these guys are still fighting for that first win. And that first win is not just about showing and getting the points. It's also a bit about that moral victory, you know, getting that a bit of inspiration for your team to say, hey, you know what? We do have a shot at making it to the playoffs, and we do have a shot at beating those good teams.
And I think this is an important one as well because well, both of these teams are certainly capable of making it to the playoffs. I don't think either of them are the teams you look at and you say they're automatic shoo-ins. For both of these guys, this has got to be a pretty close feeling competitive match that either team feels like they have a decent opportunity to win. And I think those kinds of matches are just, when you break it down, the most important matches when you're making your journey to the playoffs, trying to get there as a team that's going to be scrapping it out in the middle of the bracket and probably not absolutely dominating.
Yeah, absolutely. But as we do take a look at what these players are doing, it's worth noting that Catalina, traditionally a map that really used to be considered a very strong map for things like Reapers. We do have that first Reaper popping on out from Seekers, so nothing super crazy. We're not going full 3 racks Reaper, which does occasionally still happen, and especially outside of the absolute top level of play, can be a very, very effective strategy even to this day. But Reaper's going to be able to make its way in, passing by the Overlord, but the Lings are already out on the map, so kind of nice for Plumerant, but also can be a little bit detrimental if he doesn't have anything back at home to help defend.
Yeah, the Queen pops out at the perfect time. He is able to pull the drone away, is Plumerant, and now it looks like this Reaper's going to have to back off. He did get the information, got the scout off, and getting out alive is always a good feeling.
But he's not going to be backing off back home. He is going to go just kind of out into the middle of the map, and that means that these Lings get a free ride to go after that SCV, building the command center. The SCV is doing the ring around the Rosie, trying to complete this command center. Oh, the Ling actually not target firing down that SCV anymore. Nice little abuse of the AI from Seeker as he completes that command center. The depot is getting a little bit low. He's going to have to repair that back up, and he does lose one of his SCVs, but overall, pretty nice cleanup over here from Seeker, considering that oftentimes does end fairly poorly.
Yeah, I mean, the SCV got the command center out, and I feel like the importance of that cannot be overstated. It just puts you that much quicker to mules on a second command center. It puts you that much quicker to pumping out SCVs. And taking that early loss just stings so much, but barely any delay at all. Cute stop micro, and now it looks like Seeker's turn to be out on the map again.
Yeah, I mean, he is going to be moving around with that Reaper again, and the Marines are going to stay at home to defend, but the real question is, what on earth is Plumerant up to, and will this Reaper get the scout out on it? A super fast, I mean, hyper fast layer coming out from Plumerant. 2 base Spire is oftentimes the thing that just comes to mind when you see a Spire or a layer this quickly, but it definitely fell out of favor for a good reason. It's very difficult to make work against modern day Terran players.
Yeah, if it is going to be 2 base Spire, we should see the second 2 gases coming down around the time this layer finishes. Plumerant may have something different up his sleeve, but this layer is going to be finishing up now, and we should start to see the next clues as to his strategy here.
Yeah, Seeker, having scouted out the timing of the third base, should know, wait a second, you know, this third base went down almost around 4 minutes. That's definitely one of the later third bases you can go for. So you might be thinking either A, because remember, you face a very wide variety of players in terms of skill levels in the CSL. My opponent may just not be the most on point about macro, or B, they're doing something funky. So I like the fact that he's going for the double engineering base, because that's going to allow him to, 1, get up the missile turrets, but also 2, get up upgrades to hit a nice little timing. But the question is, will he actually be well situated to deal with a very fast fire that's coming out?
Yeah, he will have scans available. If anything kind of threw him off here, he may want to use one instead of dropping another mule, but it looks like he's going to be relying on this drop instead for the map presence to get that info.
Yeah, it seems a lot to me like he may not realize what's coming. We'll see if he does decide to throw down. Oh god, he's throwing down a third command center, which again can be okay in some situations, but that's our third CC is gonna take a little while to build, and he's not making any missile turrets. He's basically got no units at home. He's making a few more Marines, but he's got a very vulnerable combat shields upgrade on that tech lab coming out. These Marines will be able to get some good damage done, but they have to buy time and make sure those mutas cannot just move their way across the map.
Yeah, if Plumerant decides to just sack this third, which it definitely looks like he's moving in the direction of doing, Seeker could still not know that the mutas are coming.
There are no mutas actually coming right now. That's one of the big problems. Plumerant banked almost 800 gas, but opts to make a large round of these Lings in response to seeing those drops, and just losing the third like that. This is actually the ideal situation for Seeker. He kills a third, doesn't lose almost any of these Marines, is gonna finish up his third back at home, has enough Marines, or is going to have enough Marines to deal with the mutas, and he's throwing up an army. I mean, he still has no idea that the mutas are coming, but now the mutas may just have to help defend against the next wave of aggression from these drops, so he may see them anyways and have time to respond.
Yeah, this scan's gonna come down. It doesn't quite see the Spire. This could be one of those funny games where Seeker wins, and he's like, oh, that felt pretty easy. Then he goes and watches the replay and is like, that was 2 base muta? That didn't feel like 2 base muta, because he just bought himself so much time off the back of those drops. It's just gonna be really important that when these mutas do come, and they are coming now, he has forces in position to defend them.
Yeah, third command center tries to go land, but it seems like Seeker's gonna have to back off over there. Not enough mutas to really take on the medevac directly, with all the Marines unloading to kill off one of the mutas, 2 of the mutas. The medevac does get sniped off, but every single muta kill really stings right now, because that is what Plumerant has invested all of his resources into, and he doesn't have a third behind this. The Marines are unloaded and ready to snipe off that third if he goes in for it, but it seems like Plumerant is backing up. He just has no idea about that drop, so theoretically he shouldn't be back there in time to defend.
Yeah, and it looks like he's going to get the cancel forced out here, maybe even a couple of drones that are transferring over. just a single muta in here, but Seeker decides he's not going to try to target that down. Better safe than sorry. And he boosts on out of there. The muta's trying to catch him at the corner here, and it looks like they actually may be able to force a drop.
Yeah, he should be able to pick off these medevacs full of all the Marines. So finally, we end up seeing Plumerane get a victory out there. But behind this, I mean, we take a look at Seeker's situation. He's not only killed off a handful of the mutas that we're trying to drop, and he's also establishing this third base, maybe a little bit preemptively. He doesn't actually have too many units over here, but he's got a lot of Marines back inside his main base. He's got missile turrets, and very importantly, I want to note, he's got really solid upgrades coming up with 2-2 on the way.
Yeah, but the power of Plumerant's macro at least seems to be giving him a complete map control here. And Seeker is now going to step out and try to start dealing with this.
Ooh.
But these Lings can actually get a wraparound until some reinforcements come out, and this is still going to be a bit of a costly engagement from Seeker as Plumerant gets every inch of surface area available.
Yeah, a lot of really good damage being done by those Lings, and the 1-1 upgrades also for those Lings for Plumerant really coming in handy over there. I almost actually would have liked it a little bit more if Seeker just tried to fight that straight up, but I kind of understand wanting to retreat back to your reinforcements a little bit sooner, but at the end of the day, he is starting to get overrun, so as much as I was kind of touting Seeker's position, losing your entire army and now losing all the SCVs at your natural is going to be a pretty tough situation to pull yourself back from.
Yeah, I think Plumerant identified the moment of weakness and just went for it. And it looked like maybe his macro was just a bit stronger. Even after losing that third twice, he was still able to power out quite an impressive army. And a lot of that might just have come down to the decisiveness to say, hey, I've taken a lot of damage. I think my best chance is counter damage, and I need units to do that.
This is going to be very difficult for Seeker to pull off. He does still have the third command center, but it didn't turn into an orbital command, so he hasn't been banking additional mules or anything behind this. He's been focusing on just making these Marines, and Widowmines, okay, not going to burrow. He does stim up his entire army, but luckily for him, he does have a lot of medevac energy to work with for now, so it's not going to be too costly for that stim. Has to be very, very wary of where these mutas are, though. If he wants to send out a drop, try and do some counter damage, because Plumerant's doing a great job. He droned up massively behind all that. And while the mutas are taking a little bit of damage here, the Marine count just isn't quite high enough.
Well, these Marines are going to try their best to kite back against here. One Widowmine manages to help clean up some of the ground army, but these Marines are just falling so fast to the mutas. And good on Plumerant for not getting too cocky and fighting them head on. But
okay, well, beautiful Widowmine connection, sniping off two of the mutas and also softening up the rest of them, is finally going to be able to push that back. But Seeker hasn't really been making consistent SCV production off of his 3 command centers because he's been busy trying to get out the Marines that he's been losing so that he doesn't just die to an outright attack. And in the meanwhile, Plumerant on 67 workers, yeah, he just lost a lot of his Lings. Yeah, he just softened up a lot of his mutas, but he's got 5 bases right now, and he can easily replace all of that, Joe.
Yeah, and he's not even going for Banelings or any of the tech, and I think that's just indicative of how far ahead he is in terms of his production and his income. He was at nearly double Seekers. The Mulehammer has helped him catch up a little bit, but that's going to get cleaned up by these mutas.
Yeah, the muta is actually going for a snipe up on the command center, and we don't actually have a repair coming down, so all these mules not going to be too useful for the defense, and losing that third CC. Seeker just lost one of his few remaining, I would say, advantages. He does get a snipe off on a few more of these mutas, but the Lings on the run by, there's no wall at the natural.
Yeah, and now these Lings are just going to continue to slam into the Marines that are trickling down the ramp. A lot of these SCVs going to be caught out here. Reinforcements finally swing in from the north, but the damage has been done here, Ravi.
Yeah, I think the way that you said it actually is so perfectly describing the situation, is that Seeker is just, it feels like he's constantly trickling out some units here and there, and every single time Seeker takes an okay trade, it's actually going to be to his detriment, because Plumerant doesn't need to take winning engagements. He just needs to trade out for something somewhat evenly and make sure he doesn't die to a big counterattack, and that's kind of what Seeker's hoping for right now, is that he can go for a counterattack, but this is just not a big enough army to take anything without beyond level micro, and quite frankly, beyond level micro is hard to pull off right now, Joe.
But Seeker does speak Korean, so let's see if he can do it. The Banelings are going to come in from every angle, and yeah, when you have almost one Baneling for every Marine, that's going to be the game. Point one goes to Seeker.
To Plumerant.
Or Plumerant. I am sorry. I said Seeker's name a bunch there.
Yeah, University of Florida putting one, or not able to put one on the board just quite yet. We do have Georgia Institute of Technology going up 1-0 with Plumerant taking the first game of the day. I want to remind you guys that this is a best of 5 though, so still some opportunities for Florida to turn this around as we hop into game number 2, which is going to be Bexby versus Theory on a, what is this? This is going to be a Terran versus Protoss on Interloper.
All right, guys, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back with that next game. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. I am still Joe and this is still Fear Dragon, and we are casting Florida versus Georgia Tech, and this game should be a lot of fun. I think this is probably the highest level game we're going to see here today, and it's going to be a TVP.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. Theory, for those who don't know, a former commentator for a little bit, also a Grandmaster level player, Protoss player, and he was one of those players that I really enjoyed looking forward to watching some of his games and occasional WCS brackets and in just random miscellaneous tournaments. Theory would be one of those players that was oftentimes showing up, was also an active member of the community and everything. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how he's going to do here, as I haven't actually seen him play too much lately. I think he has been playing, but I just haven't had the privilege of watching as many of his games as of late. So this is going to be a bit of a treat for me. And of course, Bexby, also really solid Masters League player that I do recognize from previous seasons of CSL. So it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I think I saw Theory at both of the North American DreamHack events. So that would indicate that he's been a little bit more active. I don't think I've seen him play since like 2014, and I remember he was pretty into the Blink Stalkers at the time, but that it doesn't say that much because it's 2014 and it seemed like just about everyone was blinking in every single matchup off of 2 bases. So
yeah, now the only person who's going off of 1 or 2 bases with Blink Stalkers is Hitman, and yes, he is playing again, which I'm very excited about. But
well,
you don't really see that as much anymore.
Is he playing Legacy? Because
he's playing Legacy of the Void.
Because for a long time, like for the last year and a half, he was the #1 on Oz.
Yeah, it was actually hilarious. This is playing in Hitman. For those who don't know, he was this legend from the old Heart of the Swarm days, and he started playing Legacy of the Void. Realized he didn't really like it because he was known for being a 1-base all-inner or 2-base all-inner, and he was really, really good at it. Very, very good at it.
He beat a laser doing it.
He beat a laser and qualified for WCS Premier League, and then decided that he needed to prioritize school and just gave up his spot after beating a player that was like basically full-time in StarCraft. He was like, actually, no, I have to study for this quiz. And I'm like, oh, okay. But he, even after Legacy of the Void launched, was just playing Heart of the Swarm because he didn't like Legacy of the Void, because he couldn't all in quite as effectively anymore.
But this is not a game of Heart of the Swarm. Instead, we are going to be spawning into our second map here in the top left-hand corner. We have our purple Protoss. Give it up for Theory.
And down in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the red Terran player. Put your hands together for Bexby, fighting for the good old University of Florida.
Hey, Ravi.
Yeah?
Do you think these guys have a lot of Gatorade? Because they're the Gators?
I've made that joke so many times because I used to watch the Gatorland that used to happen over in Florida.
Okay.
A lot, and I used to like talk in that chat a lot. So I'm just gonna give that one to you. I'm not
Okay.
gonna criticize you for it. I'm not gonna sigh. I'm just gonna give it to you because I've been there, Joe. I've been there.
Okay. Is the Gatorland the one that Dolan won?
Maybe. I think so.
I know he won a
Maybe.
Florida Land and he was like 11. I mean, not really 11, but
okay, well.
he looked like a baby. Like there's still like I think it's actually his Liquipedia page if you ever want to laugh.
You know, he still has very smooth skin.
Yeah, but he was like 12 or 13. Like he did no facial hair, very young, and he won, and he's all like.
Oh, that's adorable. I'll have to go look that up later. But yeah, Gatorland and just some of the local events are really, really awesome. I love that a lot of especially university players and players in the CSL actually show up for a lot of those lands and even help organize some of those lands. So big shout out to Gatorland and all those great LAN events out there organized by the Collegiate Star League players themselves. But okay, we're hopping in this PvT. We saw Theory going for a little bit of probe harassment, forcing Bexby to micro his little SCV's heart out, but no immediate kills, and that's always just a good feeling for a SCV or a Terran player. Just making sure you don't kind of get out microed by a single probe. That's probably one of the most devastating feelings in StarCraft. Is losing workers to that initial probe.
Yeah, and it looks like pretty standard openings from both of these players here. And because of that, I just want to take a second to say, casting StarCraft 2, man. I haven't actually casted any StarCraft 2 in the CSL this season. I've just been doing Brood War, and oh my god, it's good to be back. There are some features in StarCraft 2 that sure don't exist in Brood War.
You know, the one feature that I think I really like from Remastered is the ability to zoom out to an absurd degree. I think that's actually that's the one thing that when I moved back to StarCraft 2 after casting Remastered, I'm like, you know, I really did enjoy being able to look at 3/4 of the map without lagging.
Yeah, I think you can get the width of Lost Temple, or maybe Fighting Spirit, one of the smaller maps. I think you can get the entire width of it with a full zoom in Remastered.
I believe it. It's sick.
It's pretty incredible, but like I never quite know what to do when you're doing the intros. Like, you know, do we zoom in Remastered now? Do we just kind of dance around the camera? Like,
you know what? You do you, Joe. You do you. Just like this Reaper is going to be doing pretty nice job going after some of these workers, forcing Theory to pull a couple of the probes off the mineral patch. He might actually be able to snag a kill over here. No, not quite able to get it. Gets a little bit greedy as well. He eats a third adept shot to the face. Theory able to defend without actually even having a Mothership Core out, which is really, really nice. The Mothership Core is now finally coming out and on the way, but killing off that Reaper, not having any of his actual tech scouted is probably the ideal real spot. I think he did have his robotics facility scouted at some point, but now being able to throw down Double Forge and a Twilight Council and everything else behind this, I really like Theory's position.
yeah, is Double Forge with a Twilight Council right now standard? PvT is probably my matchup that I'm the least confident about, but I feel like I don't see that often in PvT.
Double Forge really did fall off for a good long while, just because, yeah, gateway units are great, and I think in Legacy of the Void, Protoss players were just kind of under this realization, like, wow, adepts are phenomenal, and I don't need these splash damage units to do things quite as effectively. But as time went on, I think more and more Protoss players really got into a different groove. They started messing around with different compositions, getting up things like Stargates. I think the best way to describe it was Peely once said, PvT is in this really interesting place where there's so many different types of things you can do. In Double Forge, you can do occasionally see it, but it's really not to the same degree you used to. So it is cool to see from Theory. It's a bit of a mix-up.
Yeah, and we do see the Blink coming out with that as well. Not going to be out quite in time for the first Liberator here, which is going to set up shop over Theory's base. Probes pulled, but not until... Whoa. 11. Oh, the Widowmine drops going in at the same time, pulling him apart.
Yeah, really like that. Just timing those out. He could have sent in one at a time and gotten one out a little bit faster, but by sending them both in at the same time, man, he gets an absurd amount of damage done. Not only those worker kills, but even kills off a Stalker with a Liberator, softens up some other ones, and just sets himself up in a really, really nice spot with the damage done. But it's worth noting, no third base behind this right now for Bexby. So as much damage as he's able to do, he ties up the worker counts, and Theory has a third Nexus behind this, although as the rally point in the main base a little bit off right now as 2 workers sitting idle.
Yeah, we'll have to see if he can get those going again here. And it looks like Bexby right now just wants to be taking map control. He's trying to get some of that scouting info out. And Theory, whose Blink is finishing up, can actually move out and contest that with these Stalkers.
Oh, man. Theory, I feel like, is playing with fire right now with those gateways by his robotics facility, because every time I look at this as a Protoss player, I just think, you're gonna wall something in, man. I can feel it. One of these immortals is gonna pop out on the wrong side. You're gonna have to make a warp prism and feel silly. For now, he'll be okay because that rally point is gonna be constantly rallied to the south. But I'm telling you, Joe, this happens to me so often. I hope it doesn't happen to Theory.
Yeah, Theory, being a Grandmaster and a solid high-level player, may not make those mistakes, but we see that in the Korean League sometimes. You'll see an immortal pop out and get stuck between things.
Oh, absolutely. It happens to everybody, Joe. If anyone tells me that they play Protoss, or even sometimes if they play Terran, and they say they've never trapped units, I just don't believe them. I just think that they haven't actually played enough StarCraft.
You know, I as a Zerg, that's not really a thing I have to worry about, because we just build our buildings behind the mineral line.
That's true. Blizzard should definitely patch that.
Alright, well, it looks like these Stalkers are going to be walking into a pack of Stim Marines, and one vanishes instantly here.
Yeah, I mean, it does force out some Stims, which is nice, but these Medivacs are so full on energy right now that's definitely more damage taken by Theory than anything else. So.
Yeah, but 2 Adepts managed to get behind the mineral line and pick off 4 workers, so I wonder, 4 workers for 1 Stalker. You're the Protoss player. Would you take that trade?
Yeah, I think I would take that trade. And of course, again, like forcing out some Stims, keep an eye on where your opponent's army is. This is kind of what Theory just wants to do. He's sort of playing a little bit with fire over here with such high DPS units like Marines and blinking around. But this is what you want to do when you go for that Blink upgrade. This is how you kind of want to play it out. But Archon being made, High Templar does not have Storm just yet, so is really just relying primarily on these Archons. Liberator getting taken out. The Force Field's also trapping in a ton of these Marines. But Theory getting some pretty good trades so far.
Yeah, Bexby did try to pull off some cute micro, getting those back with the Medivacs that were available to him. But Theory needs to stay kind of pinned in here. He can use this choke to his advantage. He has a lot more force fields to burn. He has this Archon here in the back. But in kind of an open field, I worry that he could just get annihilated.
Yeah, Widowmine's gonna get Blunk on, is not able, okay, does manage to snipe off of one of them, the other one getting very low on health, and picking out these Widowmines is a huge boon to any Protoss player, just because they can be so annoying if you don't have your Observer in the right place, and you can see he's trying to set them off right now, so I guess now realizing, hey, actually my Observer's pretty close by, I can just go for the pickoffs. Observer's so close to those Widowmines. God, every single time I see this, Joe, I'm just like, oh man. If only Terran players knew that they could usually just scan right on top of those Widowmines so they get picked off and kill off the Observer. Oh, Protoss players everywhere would weep.
Yeah, another wave of Adepts coming in here. Already 7 SCVs have fallen. Let's see how many more Theory can get. They are streaming through this line, and this harassment is starting to really pay itself off in dividends, and it's very cheap for what it's accomplishing.
Yeah, he's been able to consistently do this over and over and over again. Even when there was that kind of big push in, Theory was doing the force fields, he was blinking on top of the Liberators and everything, and he had sent 2 Adepts into the 3rd. So he has been so good about that, but finally that pylon's going to get picked off on the south side of the map, so it's going to be a little bit more annoying for him to try and make something like that happen, but yeah, at the same time, he moves out with some Stalkers, is going to continue just that constant little bits of pressure that I love Theory has been going for.
Well, he's going to start poking in again here, and he's definitely outnumbered. He needs to save those blinks for defense. But once again, a couple of Adepts going to swing in from the side, draw the firepower away, and maybe allow these Stalkers to get a free supply depot.
Loses one Stalker, but is going to be able to snag potentially 2 supply depots over here as more supply depots are being built, but that one other supply depot just gets burnt to the ground. And we are seeing a fairly macro-oriented game at this point. With Storm is already finished up. Stalkers losing their lives is not entirely ideal, especially since there aren't too many back at home. This could get pretty dangerous over here for Theory if he doesn't have really solid Storms.
Yeah, let's take a look here. He does have quite a few Storms available thanks to these High Templars that have been building up energy here. He's choosing to move out, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. When you're in the open, these Storms are going to be a bit less effective. The first one comes down, does a good job of cleaning up some of the front. Second one just goes off on a couple of Marauders. Blinks come in here trying to catch this right flank is Theory, and it looks like really well done engagement.
Yeah, the important thing about a lot of those Storms is even the Storms that didn't connect, they zoned out that Bioforce, saying, hey, you know what, my Stalkers will go unopposed and sniping off these Liberators. And now he gets to snipe off on the final medevac. He's going to be able to pick off a handful. Oh, God, I love this small little details with how he handles this. He sends 4 Stalkers to clean up the rest of the army so that he doesn't lose any additional time in moving across the map and going for the jugular.
Yeah, and the Immortals together with the Storms and all these Stalkers, there's just so much meat and kind of tech available here for Theory. He's going to be pressing into Bexby's natural.
Here? Oh my God, there's a pylon below the 3rd base that just buys so much time for the rest of the army to demolish the natural and to move into a solid position past that choke point. GG gets called. Bexby is going to tap out, and Theory takes game number 2, putting 2 games on the board right now for Georgia Institute of Technology.
Yeah, I wonder what Florida might have up their sleeve to try to take this 3rd game, because remember, guys, this is only a best of 5, which means that if Florida can take, or rather if Georgia can take this next game, they're going to take the series.
Yeah, and that 2v2, we are going to be seeing Seeker as well as Top Deck, which, man, they are going to need a Top Deck card pool, some sort of trap card to try and turn this series around, because like you said, it's not going to be an easy run from here on out. But it's still very much possible. 2v2 is oftentimes the big momentum switch, the big momentum change that a team really needs to get things back on their side, to give themselves that motivational boost to say, hey, we've put one on the board, we just need 2 more. We just need to think about bringing it to that ace match and turning things around. Because I do think that even though Theory seemed like he was really in control for a lot of that game, Bexby, I don't think he was getting severely outplayed. So I'm still looking forward to seeing how things could go.
Yeah, so don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with our 2v2 between Florida and Georgia Tech here.
but she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell. As I stood frozen, infinite, I almost fell, but I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I'm no ghost, let me go.
Right from the start, we knew that this would never be now, baby. Be now, baby. We're miles apart, and we just wanna let it free now, baby. Free now, baby. 'Cause I'm only living for today, and I know you're understanding what I say. We're out of time, so I'm keeping my heart safe and sound. Safe and sound. Safe and
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are here for the world famous CSL 2v2, probably one of the signature defining traits about these tournaments here. And we've got kind of, I'm going to go ahead and call them a legacy team, the Cube brothers. They have had a lot of nicknames
Team
as we've
Cube
casted
squared,
them.
Joe. Team Cube squared.
Team Cube squared, but one of the cubes is a boxed cube, so would that make them a cube cubed?
No, I think that if my math is correct, which I'm doing math on stream right now, Joe, but I think that would actually make them Team Cube to the fourth, right? Because when you have like x to the first times x to the third, it'd be x to the fourth.
You're right.
And boxed is basically to the third.
Yeah. I mean, it's another form of cube.
Yeah, there you go, man. Math on stream successfully accomplished. Anything is possible, Joe. As we hop into our 2v2, we're going to be starting up here in the top right-hand corner of the map. Top the red Terran player. Give it up for Box Cube and his very own teammate. Just a little bit further to the south, the green Protoss player. It's Jessup Cube, forming Team Cubed to the fourth. Like cube squared sounds rolls off the tongue a little better. So I'm going to be referring to them as that.
That it does. And spawning here in the bottom side of the map, playing for the University of Florida, we have our blue Terran top deck. And his orange Terran teammate, Seeker.
I think my favorite parts about this match now are that not only is there a bottom deck in the chat right now, just to correspond with top deck, but also top deck and Seeker specifically requested blue and orange to represent their team school colors, which is just awesome. You know what? If players are not going to go with corresponding teammate colors like blue and teal or red and orange, you know, colors that are related to each other, this is the next best thing that I could ever ask for.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to see them Florida fighting out here. These guys are down 0-2, so we'd love to see them at least take a map and maybe kick things into the next gear as we progress on here. 2v2s are always fun, right? Because the meta it's a little bit nuts. I think it seems to favor aggression, and we did see Seeker show off some really cool aggression with his drop positioning and attacks. I mean, he managed to delay that 2-base Muto with a decent amount just by getting a great drop off.
Yeah, you know, I think that's what I would say right now is that Seeker, I think, definitely impressed me as, hey, you know what, this is like, he's a really solid player. And I think we kind of knew a little bit about that. And not to say that Boxcube and Jessup Cubed are not really solid players, but I think the thing that really comes to mind when I think of those two, just from previous experience of watching them in the CSL, is these guys have really just ironed out their teamwork. Not only are they named very similar to each other, but we've seen in Archon mode in the previous season as well as the 2v2s, they've shown that they really, really are just a solid team. They've got each other's backs a lot of time. And they're going to need that because right now we got the Reapers already putting on some of that hurt.
Yeah, Top Deck and Seeker have swung in here. They're starting to try to get some of these probes, but actually,
oh my God,
with the reinforcement from the Adepts, I don't think a single probe was lost, and really well done defense by Cube Squared here.
Finally, one worker ended up falling at the very end of that. I think it may have even been like a scouting worker or something, because I agree. I don't think that any workers ended up dying. A lot of them took damage, but a really solid defense. Unfortunately, from it seems like Seeker and Top Deck, no complete focus fire, but here we go. Round 2, Seeker coming in with some more Reapers, but getting pushed back by the Adepts.
Yeah, one of these Reapers is very low, and you don't want to be losing Reapers that early. It can really take the wind out of your sails with an attack like this, and there's already a Cyclone out. 2 more Reapers. This isn't held yet, but all the tools are in place to hold this.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Top Deck going for 2 factories behind this, and oh man, Boxcube forcing Seeker back, killing off a few of these Reapers on the exit, or at least one of the Reapers on the exit. And now it just seems like the longer this game goes on, the more prepared the Cube brothers are really going to end up being against this aggression. Although Reaper's now finally finding a bit of an opening over here. The grenades being tossed out. A couple of the workers are getting picked off, and Seeker's got to do more damage on this. He's only sitting on 16 workers, and just adding on a 4th barracks. He's not even thinking about expanding her just yet.
Yeah, there are Cyclone reinforcements coming in from the back, and that can offer a lot of firepower here. Top Deck bringing in his Top Deck move. This is very, very committed, but this might be actually enough to overrun the standing armies of Cube Squared.
Okay, lock on that Mothership Core is going to try and prevent additional Footstone overcharges. 1 Footstone overcharge does force back some of these units, but oh man, Boxcube loses his Cyclone, and now there's really not that much on the defense. Although some of these Reaper grenades actually doing some friendly fire damage. Seeker's got to be careful about that. Void Ray on the way out over here for Jessup Cube, but it seems like it's gonna have a really hard time coming out. The Pylon depowers the Cybernetics Core, the Gateway, and the Stargate all in one fell swoop. A Liberator comes in for Boxcube to try and help his ally defend, but more than enough damage has been done at this point. Jessup Cube is up against the ropes.
Yeah, a couple more Cyclones are going to eventually clear this Oracle up, but it will have the ability to kill a lot of these Reapers, but at this point I just don't know if it matters. It looks like they're going to go for the throat on Jessup Cube here, not trying to bounce back and forth between the comparatively stronger Boxcube and his ally, instead going for the kill, and I just don't think the tools are in place to stop this anymore.
Yeah, more Liberators coming on out for Boxcube, and it seems like, no, he's not going to go for the counter-aggression. I would have loved to have seen him go for a little bit of counter-aggression. You know what? One of the kind of tried and true styles of 2v2 is you tell your teammate, die slowly, please. Just die as slowly as possible. Buy me time to make magic happen with the units that I'm going for, the tech or the economy that I have. And Boxcube is going to try and defend his teammate to the bitter end, but loses the Oracle, and a handful of these Marines might be able to trap in these Reapers. There's not a lot of escape paths over here.
Yeah, it's a nice move. It looks like they... Oh, no, they can't actually get up that ramp. There is that dude out in the way blocking it. And it looks like Top Deck is going to try to lock onto that Liberator from within the circle. Not a great strategy. These Reapers are going to get up the ramp. They've killed all of the Marines off this tank. Very vulnerable.
Oh,
I think that's
big
it.
losses. Yeah, those are some pretty substantial losses for Box Cube. He sieges up a siege tank back in his main mineral line, but he hasn't really been making a lot of workers from that natural. It's not even an orbital command, so at the end of the day, this actually did end up being enough damage, I think, for Seeker and Top Deck. Top Deck has his own orbital command finishing up and is now securing a position that, while is not a ton of workers right now, Box Cube does have way more workers.
When was the last time you saw Reaper splits against a tank?
Not very often. Definitely not very often, but this is... Box Cube is in a really, really desperate situation right now because he just doesn't have many units. Oh god, the Cyclone's even walled in. The tank has to unsiege to let the Cyclone out.
Yeah, and the second that tank unsieges, every single one of these Reapers are going to be on top of it. Now with this Liberator, there is at least some cover, maybe something he can do. It's going to force this siege tank back of Florida, but it's a desperate situation. Actually, the siege tank getting cleaned up is a nice pickup for Box Cube, and GSOC Cube is still technically alive. His Nexus is back up, so this game, it's looking scary, but it's not quite over.
Yeah, I almost wonder if it'd be worth pulling that Liberator back home to defend and help deal with these Reapers, but looks like the Reapers are going to be on a big Death March charge going into that main base once again of Jessup Cube. And the Oracle is here, surprisingly enough. He managed to repower that Stargate, Warp Gate technology finished up, and the Oracle will be able to chase these Reapers back, even secure a couple kills, which is definitely not too bad, but really doesn't have the energy to do too much more.
Yeah, I'd love to see... I think Box Cube is actually in a pretty strong position here. I'd love to see them just go for the kill on GSOC Cube. Because Box Cube, he's set up defensively, and that's great. But GSOC Cube, Box Cube can't move out and try to help GSOC Cube, I think. I think he'll get swallowed whole if he moves out of this great defensive choke he's built for himself.
Yeah, that is the thing about Box Cube's position is, yes, he's got 48 workers leading up way above anyone else in the game, including even Top Deck, who did go for the faster expansion. And his macro's been pretty solid, but the problem is he doesn't really have too many units right now. And yeah, he can defend himself, but like you said, he has a hard time defending multiple locations, and moving out is really not going to be an option. So I agree. I really like the idea of just going after Jessup Cubed with a few more units, but I think the Reaper's going to have a really hard time doing that right now. And it seems like they are just going to be teching up. Top Deck is also going for a very mech-based composition, or was going for a mech-based composition with the two factories, but it seems like he's still making Marines, so maybe not full mech.
Yeah, and slowly, Cube Squared is trying to claw their way back into this game. There is a Thor out now to offer some additional anti-air help. These Widow Mines can assist with that as well, especially with zoning at the tops and bottoms of these ramps here. If an Oracle tries to come in for a flank, it could get caught off guard, but the Thor actually kind of working against itself and warding it off before it goes over the Widow Mine.
Yeah, the Oracle, it's nice if we can throw down some revelations later on. And we got a scan coming down from Box Cube, identifying that there is a natural base for Top Deck. Doesn't quite see the one for Seeker just yet, but it is really just going to be about defending and making sure he's in position to deal with whatever aggression gets thrown at him. Now moving out with a handful of these units. He's already set off one of the Widow Mines, so might be able to snag a couple of these units that are fairly spread out right now for Top Deck.
This is going to be the moment, I think, as Box Cube moves out onto the map here. Our University of Florida team is set up strong in the middle of the map. A lot of these Widow Mines are available to offer support. But that Liberator goes down to the Vikings while all this was going on, and that's a huge pickup that opens up that ramp.
Siege Tank, he is taking a lot of damage, but also taking some good damage, taking off one of his opponent's Siege Tanks, but he has just overwhelming numbers over here for Box Cube to clean up the units at the front. The problem is he has a really hard time pushing into a Terran siege line with the Widow Mines, the Thors, the Vikings. Everything here is very difficult to push into. You can do it, but it takes time, and time is really kind of the essence right now, it feels like, for Team Cube Squared.
Seeker just lost the rest of his Reapers for free. They're obviously not a critical unit at this stage in the game. But with how scrappy this game is, I feel like every unit counts.
Oh, and every unit's going to count over in the main base right now for Box Cube. This is the maneuver that Seeker really needed. Goes for the double medevac drop in the main base. Is going to go after that orbital command, potentially putting Box Cube into an almost all-in position, as he has no way of defending this. And nor can he really pull back all of his army, but he's going to start to pull back some of it. Liberators getting caught by the Vikings, and the Widowmine goes down, and even these double medevacs in the main base still trading out relatively efficiently.
Yeah, cute save on the siege tank there by Box Cube, but now it looks like Seeker might just bounce over to GSOC Cube, who's been, the poor guy has been trying to claw his way back into this game desperately, and now he just has this completely undefended base.
Oh, okay, well, the Protoss army has gotten relatively strong at this point with so many adepts. Guardian Shield, he was able to clean up the Thor and maybe a handful of those other units, is now going after the kill on that one medevac. Might be able to snag it, but instead just gets all the Marines before anything really is able to load back up. And oh, this is starting to look better and better as Jessup Cube retakes his main base.
Yeah, but I think the biggest thing that kind of silently happened in the background during all of this is Seeker got up to a real 2-base economy. For such a long time, he was pegged on that 1 base. Now he's at almost worker count, and you can see that his macro is just so solid and on point that every time his army gets cleaned up, it seems like he has another one waiting in the wings.
Yeah, and this army over the main base right now of Jessup Cube, it just can't be handled by the Protoss forces alone. He needs the backup. He needs Box Cube or some amazing photon overcharges, but even those photon overcharges are not really going to be able to save the day over here. Does push back the army for a little bit, but now the Stalkers are going to be under fire. Mothership Core are going to have a hard time getting over to this natural to help defend. And it looks like finally Box Cube is going to be able to send a couple of units back over here to help out, but so many of the workers have already gone down at this point. The damage has been done.
Yeah, and that's a great concave at the bottom of the ramp. Tough position to push into. With all those medevacs healing as well, those Marines are going to trade out pretty efficiently. Losing the medevacs is a bit painful here as Seeker pulls away. He may even lose this third one flying over his opponent's base, and yeah, it is going to go down, but it's still a great position to be in for Florida.
Yeah, I mean, just comparatively, it is Box Cube who's still leading up in supply, but not by nearly as much as to counterbalance, I guess, his teammates' situation, where Box Cube has 121 supply, Jessup Cube has 16, and is actually dropping even further as he loses a few more units. So it's really getting very difficult for him to rely on his teammate for anything. In the meanwhile, Top Deck and Seeker are sitting at a, I mean, relatively healthy 90 to almost 100 supply right now.
Yeah, and it looks like Box Cube is going to be able to hold this position strong for a little bit. He's trying to bait some units in here, maybe picking off a Thor. Any kind of expensive pickoffs that he can efficiently
nice
take are nice. But
splitting up versus these Widowmines too is doing a really nice job, but there's a lot of Marines behind this, although the Marines moving to the siege tank line, taking some substantial losses.
yeah, and now these Widowmines have all been set off, and Box Cube feels comfortable scanning and moving on up. Here he is going to clean all of these up. That's going to make it a little bit easier to push into. But I think that Seeker and Top Deck are going to be happy to be pushed into at this point. They've essentially reset GSOC Cube in his entirety, and I'd take a 2-on-1 game any day of the week.
Yeah, not only that, but you have to remember that the natural base for Box Cube was sniped off a long time ago. So even that third base he has, that's actually just his main base floated on over. So it's really not an ideal spot right now for Box Cube, who's now going to be up against Top Deck, who's sitting on a 3-base economy. Even Seeker getting up his own third base at the gold right now. So they are just going to fall further and further behind economically as well.
Oh, I absolutely love the planetary with the missile turret at the third. All that is that's Top Deck saying, hey, we're so far ahead that I don't want GSOC Cube to claw his way into Dark Templars and just murder me. He's taking that option off the table, and I think Seeker and Top Deck are just in a really solid spot here.
Yeah, or even just the Oracle to come in and start dealing some massive damage and trying to even up the game. Because Jessup Cube, God, this guy is the guy who just is sitting there and in the gladiatorial pit full of all of these really dangerous enemies. He's lost his limbs, but he's still just clinging to his sword with his mouth and still slashing at his opponent.
Well, he may
It's
not
really
be able
quite
to cling
impressive.
for that much longer as Seeker goes for a huge Doom Drop in the main base of Box Cube. Box Cube has been holding his position strong at the front due to those siege positions, and Seeker just completely bypassed it. He's actually using the Sim City of his opponent's base to his advantage as he's pretty well locked in here.
Oh.
Box Cube going to try to engage with this and actually able to get a really good cleanup as Box Cube. Nope.
Yeah, but Box Cube loses a lot in the process, so God, even then, he's not actually able to clean up everything. This might have actually just been the winning maneuver from Seeker over here, cleaning up Box Cube's army, and now Box Cube sitting down at 58 supply. He's joining the ranks of his teammate Jessup Cube, and at the end of the day, there just isn't enough to make anything happen anymore.
Yeah, a couple of Thors from top deck are going to lumber on in from the back, and they're just going to finish cleaning up the production of Box Cube, which has been basically completely reset at this point. G-Sock Cube is trying to get out glaives for his adepts, but I think the fat lady has sung Fear Dragon, and these guys have bought themselves another chance to win their first series in the CSL.
Yeah, Box Cube did a really nice job, although I do think toward the end, maybe just there was a little bit too much on his shoulders, or he felt like there was too much on his shoulders from having lost your teammate. There's a lot of pressure that gets put on you, and his minerals and his gas definitely started banking. I mean, we can see that there's the bank there now. He's lost all of his production, but even before that, definitely could have had a little bit more, and that would have helped him a bit in not being spread so thinly across multiple fronts, and would have helped him maybe break through on the center area a little bit faster. But that is going to be it. GG gets called, and we are going to have a bit more of a series as we have University of Florida taking their first game.
Yeah, congrats to them. We are going to be jumping into our next match in just a minute here, which is going to be another 1v1, and that is...
It's going to be a PvP between Dead from University of Florida and Pluto from the Georgia Institute of Technology. I believe the map is going to be Abyssal Reef as well, so PvP on Abyssal Reef.
Well, that should be a lot of fun, so don't go anywhere, guys. We are going to be right back with more CSL.
Between us, before tomorrow comes, and it all gets lost again. The ashes burn down brightest when we've everything to lose. So scribble me out. Mistakes erased, forgotten. Life goes on without me. But she said, trust me, these are the stories we will tell as as I stood frozen. Infinite, I almost fell, but I got a feeling and my heart starts beating, a sudden rush of feeling alive. This is freedom and I won't change, I won't phase out. I know God, let me go.
Right from the start, we knew that this would never be now, baby. Be now, baby. We're miles apart, and we just wanna let it free now, baby. Free now, baby. 'Cause I'm only living for today, and I know you're understanding what I say. We're out of time, so I'm keeping my heart safe and sound. Safe and sound. Safe and Right from the start, we knew that this would never be now, baby. Be now, baby. We're miles apart, and we just wanna let it free now, baby. Free now, baby. 'Cause I'm only living for today, and I know you're understanding what I say. We're out of time, so I'm keeping my heart safe and sound. Safe and sound. Safe and
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the CSL. We are getting ready to hop into our fourth match of the evening. Florida managing to claw their way back into the games here. And we're going to be jumping in between Pluto and Dead. It's a PvP on Abyssal Reef.
Yeah, remember that Georgia Institute of Technology, aka Pluto, just needs one more victory and they close out this series. But if Dead is able to pull this victory off, we go to that ace match and both teams will be sending out their tried and true pride players, their ace players, so to speak. So we'll see if we make it that far, as they're still got to get through this game first.
Yeah, and spawning here in the bottom right-hand corner, playing for Georgia Tech. Give it up for Pluto.
And spawning up in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Protoss player. Give it up for Dead from University of Florida.
Give it up for Dead is like a kind of a morbid thing to say.
Give it up for the dead, man. I think that's not that morbid. That's like show respect for the deceased.
Yeah, or the zombies, depending on what kind of future you live in.
It's true. I could give it up for the zombies. I would be okay with that. Small little things that happen in PvP with gas timings. There are some Protoss players that like to go for the first gas a little bit earlier on. But what's kind of interesting is that Pluto not getting a second gas geyser nearly as early on as his opponent Dead. So normally you do end up seeing those very quick 2 gas geysers, and you can already see like if your opponent hasn't thrown down their second gas by the time your probe makes it in to scout, suddenly you're thinking, oh, okay, wait a second, there's something a little bit less than ordinary coming out from my opponent, it seems like. But man, this could get weird with probes being pulled off the line. Oh my god, Dead completely falling for the charade over here of a cannon rush.
Yeah, but here on the other side of the map, Dead is dropping down a proxy pylon. And I think if you were wanting to see a quick game, maybe you've got it's not final season yet. Maybe you've got a pop quiz tomorrow. You're like, oh, I want to watch CSL, but I want to get to bed. This could be happening as we see our Stargate coming down.
Yep, this can be very, very strong. And you know what's really hard actually to defend against if you don't have a lot of gas? Stargate play, oracles, because you have to make these choices on whether you're going to start up warp gate technology, your stalker, and a mothership core. You have to make all those decisions, or maybe sometimes even start up an adept. We do see a stalker coming out, but stalker gets started up after the mothership core and warp gate, which just means it's a little bit further delayed. It's not a huge deal. It's not a game-ending proposition, but it does make things a little bit more difficult. The other thing worth noting is the pylon placement right now does leave 1 or 2 small little choke point areas where the Oracle can kind of sneak its way in, maybe deny some mining from that second gas geyser and get some damage done.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, I don't think there's been any indication that this proxy Stargate is in play. And it could just be a brutal off guard here. The second Stalker's on its way, though, and I think, like you said, that should provide some ability to ward this attack off. It's mostly going to come down to positioning and reaction times here.
Oh, trying to draw as many units over to that natural as possible as the Adepts shade their way on into the main base. Looks like Pluto's might end up blowing out that photon overcharge on the Adepts rather than the Oracle. First one goes off. The Oracle trying to get little bits of pieces of damage, but not really finding too much. A really solid defense from Pluto so far. The Oracle gets out of there, but loses most of its energy. And the second Oracle is late to start, Joe. Oh, that's actually one of the worst case situations. A late to start second Oracle really puts a huge dent in this push, especially if you lose the pylon.
Yeah, and I think the DPS is going to be available to make this happen. We see Dead kind of exhale and hang his head here as he cancels that Oracle, and he knows this attack has been completely held really good on Pluto and was able to do it all while securing that natural.
Joe, I actually don't think that could have gone any worse for Pluto. The only way I could see it going potentially a little bit worse is if he didn't, for Dead. Sorry. I don't think that could have gone any worse for Dead. The only way I think it could have gone even worse is if he didn't even get an initial worker kill. But this is just this has been devastating for him so far.
Yeah, this Oracle is going to swing in again. He's going to try to find some damage to recoup his losses here, but the dual Stalkers offer a lot of DPS, and they're going to drive that away. And there's now 2 Stalkers in each mineral line, and that Fear Dragon is enough to hang on solidly. Pluto is getting out his Immortal. He's getting his production cranked up, and I think we're just going to see him enter this next stage of the game in an absolutely dominant position.
Yeah, normally you always talk about PvP. You say 3 Stalkers is how many Stalkers you need to safely ward back an Oracle. But this is not a full health Oracle. It's actually lost quite a bit of health, so it really has a hard time pushing in even to 2 Stalkers. That's actually just barely probably enough DPS to push this back. And Oracle activates his Pulsar Beam and immediately has to deactivate it, losing out on even some more energy. Has a robotics facility that you mentioned behind this and is getting up those immortals, which is nice. So I like that he's trying to play a bit greedy, not warping in too many units, really just relying on that Oracle to buy space and sending in some adepts that can get some worker damage done. I guess that is important, but are they really going to be able to get the damage done they need? Right now, they're not even killing that many workers.
Yeah, 2 workers go down. Now it looks like they're going to change their target firing priorities to one of the Zealots, which is a bit unfortunate, and they managed to get 4 workers in the end, but 4 workers for 4 Adepts, especially when you're already ahead on workers, is going to feel absolutely fantastic to Pluto.
Yeah, Pluto's definitely going to be happy about that, and even has some more. I mean, the longer that this game goes on, the harder these small little bits of harassment will end up. The harder it is to make them really that effective, as Pluto's just going to accumulate a larger and larger army. The Mothership Core can easily defend that one main base, and the only real question is maybe Pluto starts falling a little bit further apart when he tries to establish a 3rd base, and he kind of splits himself up a bit further. But for now, Pluto is looking really, really solid.
Well, we'll have to see what he wants to do as he starts to get this very powerful 2-base army together. Does he want to step out onto the map and probably just try to use it to secure a 3rd? But he has to know, with all the investment in harass and how behind on workers his opponent must be, there's not actually much of a ground army for Dead here.
No, he's very much, and I like this in a sense. I like that he's just relying on harassment units and an Oracle to try and buy time, because that is the way you can pull yourself back in a game. But you can already see the little signals that Pluto wants to move out soon. Charge finishing up. His Temple Archives for Archon's going to be finishing up. He's got proxy pylons being established over on the other side of the map. Multiple proxy pylons that are not only good for just scouting out if his opponent moves out, but also really nice for just having reinforcements. He is finally moving out. That is the last little signal he needs. The Oracle does go after a Zealot that was picking off the Stargate and might be able to find a little bit of damage. There's already a Photon Cannon inside the main base. And Doom and Destruction is coming to Death's front door.
Yeah, there's the big High Templar warp-in. That's going to be all for Archons. And I don't even think Dead knows exactly what's coming his way. This big Charge Lot Immortal Archon army, it's going to steamroll Dead, I fear.
It seems very much like that might be the case. The Immortal's actually, interestingly enough, going to be trying to move in from the natural. The Zealot's going to get a little bit choked up over here, but the Archons come to back him up, and the rest of his own Zealots, Pluto, just storming on through. Punching overcharges in a really, really nice spot. I actually love the SimCity over here, but is it actually going to be enough? It seems like the answer is going to be a resounding no. Pluto going to be taking game number 3. The final game that his team needed to close out this series, as he nearly doubled his opponent's supply.
Yeah, of course Dead is still dancing around with these probes, trying to hold on for a 3 Zealot warp-in. He knows what he knows the game is over, but sometimes when you're playing in a streamed game, it takes a moment or two for you to process here. The natural base.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, but this is a team match. You feel the weight of your teammates on your shoulders, and you say, well, this is the 4th game. I was the last hope to try and give one of my teammates one last opportunity to, most likely, I would imagine, like, face off versus Theory in that ace match to try and turn the series around. The beginning of a comeback as the 2v2 kind of connected, and it was all about making that connection. So sometimes you can take that loss a little bit hard, but I hope he isn't too hard on himself, as he gave it a good effort. But at the end of the day, we do end up seeing Georgia Institute of Technology taking that final victory in game number 4.
Yeah, big congrats to Georgia Institute of Technology. This is, of course, the group stages of the CSL, so no one is even being close to eliminated quite yet. Thank you to our sponsor, Twitch, for helping to make this happen. You guys are, of course, watching it on Twitch. If you don't have an account, stop being a lurker and make one. Thanks for casting with me, Fear Dragon. And I think that's going to do it for us. I think both of us will be here Thursday for the SCR.
Yeah, I believe that's going to be the case.
All right, so don't miss the SCR this Thursday, guys. Gonna have some awesome Brood War action for you, and we will see you next time here at the CSL.
Oh, we're out of time. The final call is calling. And the light falls lightly between us. Before tomorrow comes, and it all gets lost again.